Welcome, I'm the Deadwoodjedi. This is a Raid Shadow Legends video, and I get asked all the time, what's the best DPS for this team or that team? So I thought I would go through and give you a top 10 list for me of the best damage dealers for the Myth-Fu clan boss team. It's one of the best teams out there. It's full auto, it works on all the difficulties, and it's not always easy and attainable, so it's pretty high end generally. The one thing that you really need to have, and this is one of the things we keep in mind, one, it's a block damage team, so nobody takes any damage. Don't have to worry about surviving. Two, we get increased attack from Seeker, so attack-based champions are going to be better in this team. And three, we have Fu Shan is already a part of the team. It's in the name, right? You can do it without Fu Shan for sure, but this is assuming that you have him in your team. Fu Shan brings decreased defense, right? So that's a debuff that we don't need. So what are we looking for? We're looking for champions that bring lots of damage, that bring weaken debuff, and that bring, that's it, that's all we care about, damage and weaken debuff. Those are the only things. We don't need the weaken debuff necessarily to make these champions viable. Just helps a little bit. And if we get some poisons and things like that, that's a nice addition. But with this team, because you have an Eris in the squad who naturally will counterattack, and putting her in a toxic set is really kind of the optimal way to build this. Not always something that we need to do. It doesn't mean they're not useful, it just means that it's not something we're necessarily looking for. So all that said, let's go through the list and do the top 10. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next one that comes out. And of course, if you enjoyed today's music, we have that link down below in the pinned comment and description of this video, and you can use code Deadwoodjedi, save yourself 15%. And of course, if you want some account work, you don't like doing the work yourself, I'm more than happy to do it for you. My team is at the beck and call. Just visit my website, deadwoodjedi.com. Okay, so as we get into this, I just want to say, if you guys disagree with anything, let me know down below. If there's somebody I missed, let me know down below. It's only 10. There's definitely going to be people leaving off the list that could make the list, but I'm definitely interested in hearing who you guys use, who you guys think would be good on this list. I should also preface, Ninja, Michinaki, Akrisia, I left them all off the list. They're just not here. Yes, they would all make this list for sure, but Ninja's a pain to tune with. Akrisia is better everywhere besides clan boss, and so is Michinaki. So as much as I love those champions, I feel like if you have Michinaki, bring them in a Hydra. If you have Akrisia, bring her in a Hydra. If you have Ninja, just don't with the Ninja, okay? Ninja's only good for breaking records. That's it. Too much of a pain to use. So those are the caveats. That said, let's go in. Let's see the number one champion I have on my list, Turvold. Turvold's amazing champion. Not only does he have great base stats, he gives himself a bunch of buffs, and this increased speed buff works within the team. So you can build him at 70% crit rate, and he's going to work just fine. In fact, the more buffs he has, the more damage he does with this A3 ability, which is crazy strong. But this guy, it's insanely hard, and yes, he does have a weakened debuff as well. He's actually in the team I run personally, and I don't regret it at all. 100% the champion I would go with. Number 2 on my list is going to be a big surprise for a lot of you guys, and it's Varl the Destroyer. Nobody uses this cat. Nobody uses him. He's really good. Look at this passive ability here. It's basically Ninja's passive. Increases the champion's attack by 10% each time they use an active skill. Stacks up to 100%. So he basically is going to double his attack value by the end of this fight. It's a really strong ability. On top of that, he has some solid hitting ability. He's got really good multipliers. He has a weakened debuff, also a decreased attack, which we don't need, but the weakened debuff is really good, perfect for this type of a team. And ignores defense with his big hit ability. This guy's really good. I did a test video with him a while back. Definitely fun to watch because he does crazy good damage. It's not insane. Maybe he's not. Maybe he doesn't fit number 2 on this list. Maybe I'm projecting a little bit. I really like him. We shouldn't ignore him. Varl the Destroyer. Number 3 on my list is a classic. People love him. I do too. It's Jintoro because he has some fun abilities. This passive where it allows him, oh, that's not the passive. It doesn't actually hurt anything though, having that, should point that out. But he's got an A1 strong hit. A2 is a really strong hit, but more importantly, it decreases the turn meter, the cooldown, I should say, for Oni's Rage, which is the one that places decreased defense and weaken debuff. And it has this ability where every 5 times it attacks, it will attack 5 times instead of 1 for every 4th time he uses the skill. It's a mouthful, but bottom line is he does crazy lots of damage. It'll do like 1 million damage in a single attack, because of that ability. So yeah, he's really good. He does really crazy damage, and definitely somebody that you should probably be bringing in your clan boss team. I mean, it's just an insanely good damage dealer for clan boss. It brings both decreased defense and weaken, which does mean you don't need accuracy on your Fushan if you use him. And that's definitely a nice little bonus there. Then we got my boy Anax. This guy is insanely good. One of the strongest damage dealers in this game. Yeah, he's only an epic, and yes, he's number 4 on this list, but he deserves it because he hits so freaking hard. On top of bringing decreased defense on that A1, a weaken on that A3, he also has a poisons ability on that A2. When I use him for this team, turn off the A2, don't need it. Just go A1, A3, let Eris do the poisons for you. You can keep the A2 on if you really want to. It's not a bad thing. But basically, this guy just goes to town. He has a passive ability that doesn't factor in because you have block damage buff as well up. And so he just is an absolutely insanely good champion. Definitely somebody I recommend using. And then we got our big boy Draco coming in at number 5. And one of the reasons why Draco is 5 and not 4 is that his ability for the weekend, right? This Baleful Eye places decreased defense and weaken. It's a great skill, but it's not an attack ability. So he's giving up an attack every time he places that. That's the only negative I can find with his kit. Other than that, he's amazing, right? This A1 can do insane damage, especially if there's 10 debuffs on the boss. Just goes crazy high. And the E2, 4 poisons, yes please, I will take that. If you have him on your team, don't build Eris with Toxic. You don't need it. He'll do all the poisons by himself. It's an incredibly good damage dealer, definitely top tier, and 100% somebody I would go with. Talking about champions that don't bring that weekend debuff, and this is a guy that's good only because we have Fushan on the team to bring that decreased defense. I'm talking about Hole's Ring. Hole's Ring is severely underrated as a damage dealer and extremely good. The big thing is when he attacks targets under Hex, he places a perfect veil on himself for 1 turn, right? This is great. Increases the critical damage by 30% when attacking under perfect veil buff. He's gonna have that on himself. Reason why is because of his kits. His A3, a 4-hitter, places Hex, right? And then will place perfect veil on himself. Why? I don't know why, but he does do that. Maybe it's the passive that does it for him, but he'll have that. And then this A2 attacks 3 times at random, ignores 25% of defense against targets under Hex debuff. That's right. So he ignores defense, has multi-hit abilities here. That's a 4-hitter, a 3-hitter, and then a 2-hitter here. So Giant Slayer is absolutely something you want to go with. He gives himself the increased attack buff. This guy hits really hard. Now, obviously, this may not be the best kind of team for him. I would prefer to have a team with decreased defense and weaken. I prefer to have somebody else that enable me to place Hex instead of just Hold Ring. But like, this dude is insanely good, especially in a 2-1 ratio team where that Hex debuff will stay up. So if you have him, don't sleep on him. I'm not saying he's he's not number 1. He's number 6, but he is an extremely good damage dealer and definitely somebody I would look at to bring in. Number 7 on the list is a classic, especially for unkillable teams. I'm talking about Thane. Now, she does bring increased or decreased defense and weaken. She does bring poisons as well, and she has multi-hit ability. So if you want to use Giant Slayer, you want to use War Master, either one is actually good for this champion, but she does hit stupid hard, has incredibly high base attack, and pretty solid modifiers across the board. So she's going to do really good damage for you. She's going to provide some additional poisons for you if you want them. She's going to give you those debuffs that you need. Pretty much everything you want is in this kit. Is she super top tier? No, obviously not. She's number 7 on this list, but she's pretty high up there. And for an epic, the only person I can think of that's better is going to be Anax. So definitely, if you have Thane, this is a really good option of champions to use. All right, number 8 is going to be an amalgamation of a few champions because they all kind of fall into the same boat. I'm talking about ally attack champions, right? Whether we're talking Cardiel, whether we're talking Longbeard or Kreela or Farrakhan the Fat, they all bring something a little bit different from each other. But the one thing they definitely bring is a lot of damage. When you can have 5 champions attacking all at the same time, it does a lot for you, or 4, or whatever it is. But ally attack is a really powerful ability. I wasn't able to really define which one I would want to pick for this particular team, right? Longbeard brings weaken, Kreela does most damage, Farrakhan brings HP burn as well as poisons, each one brings various different buffs for your team, whether it's increased attack, crit rate, crit damage. So there's arguments to be made on which ones you want to use, but the bottom line is ally attack is a really powerful ability, and that ally attack champion, that grouping, is kind of what I stick in here at number 8. At this point, it all gets kind of a little bit pick your poison, whatever you feel like using kind of champions. But my number 9 is actually going to be Brachus the Shifter, which I don't think anybody really ever thinks about. Brachus is a really cool champion. Not only does he have, he's got a single hitter on the A1, but he's got a 6-hit ability on this A2. And that comes with a weaken debuff. That's on a 3-turn cooldown when booked. His A3, I believe it is a 4-turn cooldown, right? Places increased attack on everybody. It's a single hit. It's not like, or I'm sorry, it's a triple hit attack too. So those are 2 really strong abilities, actually. He has good multipliers, good base stats, so he can do a lot of damage for you. And with Giant Slayer, especially with the 6-hit ability, it's pretty strong. So he's actually somebody that goes a little bit under the radar. Now, he's kind of one of those champions where I go, this is somebody that's good for this, but I would prefer to use somebody else, simply because he's also red affinity. With Fushan being red affinity, that means when you get a bad affinity, it's going to be very, very bad. So just kind of keep that in mind when using someone like him. And then very last on my list, number 10 is going to be Rugnor Gold Gleam. I think this champion is absolutely bonkers, especially for unkillable teams. And really, really good. The key is turn off his A2. You don't want that ability on. Now, he's definitely going to be better for an unkillable team rather than a block damage team. And the reason for that is his passive, where it decreases the cooldown of his Gleam of Avarice skill every time he loses HP, but that's okay. Still going to be really strong. This is on a 4-turn cooldown when booked. Places decreased defense, and weaken also gives him an increased defense buff. It's a very strong ability, but the thing is, his A1 hits hard too, and it places a leech debuff. So you're going to be able to, get that out there. Obviously, unkillable is going to be better for this, but he is still very, very solid for this. And I would definitely say this is a champion I would recommend you use here. You're never going to use him anywhere else. Got a really high base stats, good multipliers. He'll do good damage for you. One honorable mention I want to talk about is Geomancer. I know a lot of you are going to be like, he's got a weaken. He does really good damage, and you're right on both those accounts. However, with a block damage team, the amount of damage that you get from Geomancer is going to be considerably less. That said, it's still plenty as far as trying to get to the damage that you want. Still probably going to get each of that 1 key. And if you build him with attack, he can do solid damage. But he's not going to be my preferred choice. And the other part to that is Geomancer is going to be better in other areas of this game, right? If I have a champion that's good in multiple areas of the game, I want to use him in the areas where I can't replace him easily. For clan boss, especially in a damage role on this team, you should be able to replace that spot fairly easily. If you can't, then I understand. Use Geomancer, he's great. There's nothing wrong with that. But if, that's the limitation there. It's hard to replace Geomancer in something like Hydra, in something like Doom Tower bosses. And so those are areas where I'd much prefer to use Geomancer if possible. And so that's going to be my focus when I'm building my teams. So that's why I kind of leave him off the list. He's very good. Definitely could make a list, right? I could see putting him in there instead of maybe even Rugnor or Brachus. Totally fine. But for me, he's off of it. So that's my top 10 damage dealing champions for Fushan, the the Myth-Fu team. Boy, if I can remember all that. So it's one of the best clan boss teams out there. If you guys haven't seen it, definitely go check it out. Definitely recommend using that squad. Remember, all these teams are on the website, so go check that out, deadwoodjedi.com. Don't forget to subscribe, and until next we meet, I'm the Deadwood Jedi.